save the season to throw. Fire and down! Incomplete down at the goal line by San Diego. Tomlinson off the left side. Tomlinson sidestep. Hello, history books. I think they have to now. Here's Sproles. Sproles inside the 10, inside the 5, and the Chargers win the game.
Welcome, everybody, to an After Hours. Craig is not here. He was at the game, so he's going to be getting in late, I'm sure. Probably sitting in traffic right now, maybe even listening to us. Welcome. Chargers win 26-8, I think is what it ended up being.
Yep.
At the very end. It got a little hairy at the beginning. Chargers kind of pulled away at the end. You loved the way they were able to kind of put the nail in the coffin at the very end, but let's talk about it. We kind of saw the breakout game of Ladd McConkey, 6 catches, 111 yards, and 2 touchdowns. And I think we're seeing a little bit better rapport from Justin Herbert and the rookie now, Ladd McConkey, through this game today.
Yeah, I mean, I think for me, the story of the game is Ladd McConkey breaking out and Herbert being healthy and starting to look more like Herbert for the first time this season. Ladd was really good. He got open a bunch, made some big catches to help move the chains. Herbert starting to trust him, throw him 50-50 balls in tight windows, throwing him open in a couple situations for big throws that kind of flipped the game on its head in the second half. Got to be really impressed with the way they're coming together, and also with the way I think you're starting to see a rapport with with Joshua Palmer. And even Jalen Reagor, it seems like Herbert trusts him. So you're starting to see them push the ball down the field a little bit more. They had more explosive plays today in the passing game, and they kind of let Herbert win the game at the end.
Yeah, you loved the 2 big touchdowns came on plays that it felt like Herbert just trusted Ladd to make a play. The first one, Herbert was able to break him off, but still able to kind of in a tight window, catch it, come down with it, make the corner miss one time when he falls down in coverage, then tries to chase him down, makes him miss again, runs it in the end zone. And then at the very end of the game, it was just, make Ladd McConkey make a play again. And he wasn't very open. Ladd wasn't. And the DB just had his back to Herbert, and Herbert, while rolling out, avoiding a sack, throwing off his back foot and on the move, going towards the sideline, still able to get enough mustard on it. And Ladd McConkey jumps up and makes that catch while getting tugged on the way down, still coming down with it, completing the catch. And it just felt like, Ladd getting catches here and there, and you kind of wished he would have gotten in the end zone a third time on that one play up in the red zone where he kind of fell at the one. It was a low throw, so, momentum was taking him to the ground. They ended up punching it in a little bit later, though. I hated that series where they gave they kind of got cute with it and gave Haskins that run on the second down.
Yeah, I hated that play call.
Hated it. Going full house in the backfield and then giving it to Haskins, of all people. Hated it. But
then running it east-west instead of north-south.
Right.
Like, he's there to be a downhill runner, and you're having him run across the formation. Everything about that play call
sucked. Yes. But luckily,
my technical analysis, everything about that play call
sucked. Period. But to have Roman not be so cute and then just run behind Alt there and get power off the edge was nice on the third down. But outside of that one play, Ladd McConkey very crisp today, caught all of his targets, was 6 for 6 while he looked totally banged up last week. Kind of short arming a couple balls, didn't come down with every single target he had, but today seemed fresh, seemed completely healthy. And like you mentioned earlier, Jamie, just seeing Herbert progressively get better and better, avoiding a lot more sacks today than he needed to have, a lot more pressure, the throwing off his back foot today, getting enough arm strength to complete some of those passes were just unbelievable today. He looked very sharp, and we got to see the wheels today too.
Yeah, it was nice to see him. Excuse me. Nice to see him escape the pocket and extend some plays with his legs. Also make some plays with his legs, running for some big first downs. I mean, that I don't think you can overstate how difficult and how impressive that last touchdown throw to Ladd McConkey was. Um, you watch that play, and at first he tries to escape the pocket to his right, and then he doubles back and rolls left, running towards the sideline, torques his hips, throws the ball back across his body on a dime, hits McConkey where only he could get to the ball. Just a perfect throw. And somebody said it in the Discord at some point. He made a bunch of perfect throws today. And I thought there were 5 or 6 that basically decided the outcome of the game. That obviously the touchdown pass to McConkey was a big deal. That one kind of gave them some separation and some breathing room. He made a huge downfield pass to Palmer down the right sideline off his back foot, just kind of flicked his wrist and made like a 40-yard completion. And put it right on the money with touch. And that was the other thing. A lot of these throws were not lasers. He had to put touch on them to get them over a defender, kind of drop it in and layer it. Really, really nice throws that we haven't really seen him make as much this year, which I think is a good sign because it obviously means he's getting healthy. The throw to Rieger was ridiculous down the right sideline as well. Both touchdowns to Ladd were phenomenal. I mean, just on the money, putting the ball right where it needs to be, over a defender, between defenders, whatever it took. There was even one throw that wound up being incomplete, but it was on the first possession. They roll him out right. They try to hit that cover 2 window to Palmer along the sideline, and he gets it just over the corner's hand, drops it into Palmer's hands, and he, of course, drops it going out of bounds. But so many great, great throws. It's just good to see him making those plays and having it affect the outcome of a game.
Yeah, absolutely. And the chat's going crazy about a Hail Mary in the Washington game. I might find that clip so we can watch it live because we're obviously here. But yes, both Ladd McConkey throws unbelievable today. There was a 27-yard completion in the first half to Joshua Palmer, which was pretty. Then there was a 45-yard completion to Joshua Palmer, which was also really good. And that Rieger catch on the sideline was, I know the Ladd McConkey was the nail in the coffin, but and it feels like maybe the missed field goal could have, even tracking back even further, could have been the nail in the coffin. But that throw to Rieger on the sideline to toe tap, catch it, and get them in field goal range, I mean, really felt like it was over then. It felt like there were a couple things that cemented that game, the missed field goal being one of them from New Orleans, that Rieger catch being another, but then to totally complete it and slam that door shut on that touchdown catch to McConkey there. There were some unbelievable throws today, and to avoid pressure multiple times backed up against their own end zone. I know there's that safety on special teams. I'm sure we're going to get to special teams in a little bit, but to avoid, it felt like multiple safeties today, one of which felt like he was dead to rights and able to kind of still regain his footing and almost still complete a pass on top of all that. I mean, he was a magician today. And that Saints defense, I mean, this Saints team is not very good, but this Saints defense is better than the team they played last Monday in my mind. And they looked a lot better today than they did against Arizona.
And how about, I think we should give a shout out to Greg Roman for letting Herbert put the nail in the coffin at the end of that game.
Yes. Okay.
This is a game with a 2-score lead, actually a 3-score lead at the end there, where you're thinking they're gonna run the ball and just go 3 and out and give the ball back to the Saints because they don't think the Saints can move the football. And they didn't do that. They opened it up. They let Herbert throw the ball down the field several times with a 2-score lead. They trusted their guy to make the throws. And like I said, he made 5 or 6 throws, particularly in the second half, that flipped that game on its head and changed the outcome of the game and made it less of a game. And now you get another multi-score win against a bad football team. They've got to be feeling good. And we talked about, the rapport with the wide receivers now. Maybe if they focus on a tight end at the trade deadline, they can kind of round out the passing attack. I mean, they still need help with wide receivers, but if Ladd and Palmer in particular are going to play this way moving forward, and you can get somebody in the middle of the field at the tight end position to make some plays and take a little bit of pressure off Disley as a third option, I think it changes the outlook of this offense big time.
Yeah, and you have to love how fired up Herbert was today too. It really meant something to him today. And with the way that who was um I'm gonna jump out real quick, Jamie. Let's I was just gonna get to Justin Herbert getting basically ankle locked.
Yes,
So let's
I'll talk about that, and then you can
yeah,
come
yeah,
back and finish.
yeah, be right
All
back.
right. So Garrett's going to jump out for a minute. He is dealing with something with his family. So I'll go ahead and just talk a little bit about that douchebag Nathan Shepard. That play was about as dirty as it gets. He's late to Herbert. He dives at his legs, which is illegal. He grabs his left leg and basically puts him in an ankle lock and tries to break his leg and drags him down to the ground well after the ball out, which is illegal. Clearly trying to injure Justin Herbert. I mean, I know we're fans and we get emotional and we react to things in the moment that seem bigger than they are. For example, there was a play where Herbert's running down the sideline. I think it was down the left sideline, and it looked like he was out of bounds, and Tyrann Mathieu came over and hit him. And in the Discord, the reaction was, "Oh my God, that's so dirty." And even me watching it live, I thought he was more out of bounds than he really was. And then you watch the replay and you realize he hadn't even gotten his foot down out of bounds yet. Not as dirty as you think. You want to fight for your guy. You want your quarterback to get those calls, and really all quarterbacks should get those calls. But that play with Shepard, it doesn't get any more dirty than that. He was trying to injure Justin Herbert, and I see people calling out Bradley Bozeman for defending his quarterback. Good on him. It's really the first time he's done anything to defend his quarterback all season. But in that moment, seeing him step up and go after Nathan Shepard is huge. So good on Bozeman for making that play. I mean, it'd be nice if maybe he, I don't know, executed a block and pass protection and we weren't talking about Nathan Shepard getting to Herbert and having a chance to break his ankle. But be that as it may, he came to Herbert's defense, which is something you need to see. And I appreciate that a great deal. But how do you, I mean, I know they don't necessarily police intent in the NFL, but how do you watch that play and not think that he's trying to hurt Justin Herbert? He's late. He dives at his ankles. He grabs his ankle. He wraps his ankle up, drags him down to the ground, and you can see him trying to twist his ankle and his foot. He should have been ejected from the game. And frankly, Dennis Allen should have benched him. And I think it says as much about Dennis Allen as it does about Nathan Shepard that he watched his player do that and he didn't bench him. He should have been gone. If not ejected, he should have been benched because you just don't do that. NFL players should have more respect for each other than that. And Nathan Shepard obviously doesn't have much respect for anything to be making plays like that. And here's Garrett.
Hey, I'm back. Catch me up. Say it again. All of it.
Basically, I said, fuck that douchebag Nathan Shepard
Yeah.
for trying to put a figure 4 ankle lock on Herbert. Justin Herbert.
Mm-hmm.
To me, there are two big things about that play that pissed me off. One is obviously he's actually three things. He's trying to hurt Herbert.
Sure.
There's no reason to grab his ankle and roll him up like that and twist his ankle like that if you're not trying to hurt him. There's no other explanation.
Mm-hmm.
So for the officials to see that, watch that play, and just throw a flag and not eject him is complete and utter bullshit. Like there's no way he should have been allowed to stay in that game.
Yeah.
But once the decision was made not to eject him, Dennis Allen should have benched him. That's just an accountability thing. That's a respect for your opponent's thing. Like, I can't have dirty players on the field. If you're trying to break somebody's ankle, you're benched. You can go figure it out on the sideline. I'm not putting up with that crap because that's as dirty as it gets, and there's no excuse for it.
Yeah. Bozeman can't block for shit, but he made the play of the game.
I said the same thing. I said,
"Oh, you did?
Congratulations to him for defending Herbert, but it'd be nice if he defended him with a pass block."
Right. Because there are a lot of legal hits that happen because of him. But yeah, I mean it doesn't get any more dirty than like trying to, not only you see him hold on to the ankle, but then he's like, you can see him like twerk his body back to try to, to try to add some torque to the ankle and try to twist him and get him down. And he did. I mean, Justin ended up going down. But the fact that, I mean, the back judge was there and saw the entire thing, did not throw a flag until Bozeman launched and hit Shepard to try to defend his quarterback. Like, I don't know how you watch it unfold and then go, well, this is offsetting penalties. I mean, there's a clear and obvious penalty here. And this is unsportsmanlike conduct of degrees that, I mean, goes by the book. That feels like an ejectable offense regardless.
I totally agree. If that happens to Tom Brady, if it happens to Patrick Mahomes and Justin, Josh Allen and any other number of quarterbacks, that's an ejection.
Yeah.
Guaranteed. And it took Bozeman diving in to break it up.
Yes.
For them to throw a flag.
Yeah.
And that's if Bosa does that to Mahomes, people's heads are exploding. Like, you just don't get away with that. You can't watch that and not throw a flag until you see the response. You just can't.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. I mean, how many times have we seen the Chargers play the Chiefs and Mahomes get hit at the sideline and refs freak out, even an illegal hit, but close enough that everybody's going, wait a minute, everybody's freaking out, even if it's just kind of on the line. But something like that, he obviously the back judge caught it because he called the offsetting penalties, but then didn't feel like it was malicious enough to be more than just an offsetting penalty. That's ridiculous.
It's absurd. I mean, you can't watch that and not understand what he's trying to do there.
Yeah.
You can't.
And go ahead.
I was just going to say, like, this is as upset as we were about the Cam Hayward play a couple years ago when he punched Justin Herbert, and make no mistake, he punched Justin Herbert. He said he fell, but his fists were balled up and he punched him. You can almost rationalize that away and say, oh, he lost his balance and he fell on him. It's bullshit, but you can almost rationalize it. There's no rationalizing. He tried to break Justin Herbert's leg. Mm-hmm. There's no other way to look at that. And to not penalize that with something more than a personal foul is bullshit.
Yeah. Yes. And the refs were not good at all today, just in general. Not that, the Chargers won and I'm not complaining about it, but just as a whole, they missed a number of calls today. The fact that they robbed Elijah Molden of that interception.
Oh my God.
We've seen more questionable catches stand, and yet he got two hands underneath it.
Two hands under the ball. The ball moved, but it never hit the ground.
Right. And because they got it wrong on the field, they just said, well, I mean, I don't know. We'll just stick with it. That call sucks. That call absolutely sucks. And then to miss that ankle lock on Nathan Shepard and make it offsetting penalties sucks. The calling 12 men in the huddle when they only had 10 that they had to pick up. And then there was that basically a bounce pass to Alvin Kamara, who catches it off the bounce. They call it a catch, and then the booth has to correct them again. I mean, they had to jump in twice today, which you don't see that very often. But man, the referees were particularly bad today.
There was even some question about whether or not Semi Fehoko made that touchdown catch in the corner in the first quarter, or second quarter, whenever that was, because it looked like he dragged and brought up some pellets or whatever from the turf, and they didn't call it. They just assumed he was out of bounds. And even Mike Pereira on the call was like, yeah, this isn't the same play where you have to get your heel down. As long as you drag your toes, you're in. And it looked like it was close, but it was something they should have at least gone back and looked at. I was a little disappointed Harbaugh didn't challenge it, to be honest.
Yeah, same here. And they had to call a timeout. They had time. It was right before the 2-minute warning. You felt like somebody in the booth would have got something close enough and just challenged it anyway. I don't know. It feels strange. And normally they err on the side of caution normally in that circumstance, and they say it's a catch so that it's reviewable. But of course, they're just messing up all day today.
Well,
and
that should have been the same thing with Molden. Call it a pick and then go back and review it because it's a turnover and it has to be reviewed.
That way you can double check. Yeah. That's the point. Yeah, that's the whole point of it. So that was just terrible today. So we did now before I jumped off, we were giving Roman some props, and I feel like late in that game, Greg Roman deserves some props for letting the leash loose a little bit on Herbert. But the script at the beginning of the game, which is normally the opposite, they have a 30-play script down. It's pretty crisp in the first half, call it first quarter-ish, and they kind of fall apart towards the end. But the beginning plays to start that game were awful. And then at the end of the game, it all started to click because they let Herbert wheel and deal. But to have 2 screens go for -2 yards and then an incompletion and then a rollout on your first 3 plays of the game was just a terrible start. You get 2 yards on your second drive. And then you get, that's 0 yards for 2 through 2 plays or 2 drives, excuse me. It just, I don't know. They ran too many screens. They were -7 yards in the first quarter with it. It was awful. They ran way too many screens to start the game off. It wasn't working. The offensive line they were bad. They couldn't get out in time to get in front and catch anybody to make a block up front. And they weren't fooling anybody. It felt very stale and predictable to start. And it just played right into the Saints defense to start the game.
I mean, the first play of the game was a play action screen pass.
Yeah. Mm-hmm.
Like, that's all you need to say. Like, we're running play action to throw the ball 2 yards behind the line of scrimmage. Okay. I know I said I wanted to see more screens, but I think I said I wanted to see them to Vidal and the wide receivers.
I kept thinking the same thing. We said more screens. They're doing more screens. We're like, well, not like that.
Not like that. But we were very clear. We said wide receivers and Vidal. I specifically said not to Dobbins.
We did. Yes.
I like the second play of the first drive, that rollout pass. They finally moved the pocket, try to make things easy for Herbert. I thought the ball was out a little late, but he put it in a spot where Palmer could catch it. He just didn't come down with it. It was a super tight window throw. And then they run a screen on third down. Awesome.
Yeah. It was prety bad to start the game, which again feels like the opposite of how they've been rolling early on. But now we got to see Herbert. Hopefully this is good news for things to come, because the way in which they saw the offense, they weren't able to score touchdowns for weeks now, and they finally were able to. They even scored a touchdown in the fourth quarter, which is even more rare for this team to start the season. So hopefully it's good news moving forward, because they need to let Herbert throw the ball.
Yeah, I think it's good news. I think, Herbert's starting to trust his wide receivers. It seems like they're starting to find not just a rapport, but some timing and some confidence in what they're doing, which is obviously encouraging. But I think the bigger thing for me is Herbert creating, not being that robot in the pocket and just standing there and patting the ball and waiting for somebody to get open. He's making people miss in the pocket. He's extending the pocket. He's extending plays with his legs. He's running for first downs. Mm-hmm. He's just becoming a multi-dimensional quarterback again, the guy that we thought he would be in this system. And it seemed like they kind of found a little bit of a rhythm. They started getting that the read option going a little bit in the passing game. Mm-hmm. And then you started seeing some outside runs work. And then the passing game kind of got going and they started building some momentum. It just seemed like they started to find a little bit more of a creative and multi-dimensional identity in the passing game and in the offense as a whole, which is encouraging. And they're making the most out of the weapons they do have. Mm-hmm. But to see Herbert creating and extending and ad-libbing, basically, where he's getting knocked a lot for being a robot and just holding the ball and staring people down, now you see him making plays and creating plays, and that's a big deal.
Yeah, some of which he was forced to do because that interior offensive line was particularly terrible today. Mainly Zion Johnson in my mind. At some point, and I don't know if it's time to hit the panic button, maybe we can have that discussion, but at some point you got to start to take a long look at Zion Johnson and figure out if you've got better players on your team that can execute what you need to do, because he is just not getting it done. Neither is Trey Pipkins. Bozeman was great to help out his quarterback, but man, those three in general, it just feels like they're always in the backfield, and they're always getting pushed back into Herbert's lap, and it's a hard thing to keep watching, especially when these games are going to get a little bit harder with better defensive fronts, and they're just going to keep attacking them in the middle, in the A and B gaps, because they know they can get after them there.
Yeah, I mean they can't block anybody in the middle of that defense or the middle of the offensive line at all. They're making, replacement level defensive tackles look like Chris Jones. That's kind of a problem. When you can't block Khalid Saunders, that's an issue. And they've got issues at both guard positions and the center position. So I don't know how you fix all that at once. But I mean, how much worse can, for example, Salyer, Hymas, and McFadden be?
Yeah.
Something's got to give.
Yeah.
You can't just keep having Herbert get guys pushed into his lap and thrown around. They can't get anything going on the ground between the tackles because of the interior line. They can't pass protect. They're extremely vulnerable to twists. Now they're starting to have issues with blitzes. Although hopefully some of those big passing plays down the field today will help deter some blitzes from opposing defenses moving forward. But yeah, I mean, it's really hard to function on offense with a two-man offensive line, and that's what they're dealing with right now.
Could they be better off just rolling Slater and Alta?
They might be. Just have them stand arm to arm like this,
next to each other, and kind of a Red Rover of sorts. Yeah, they've been terrible. And also, speaking of terrible, I know that throw was behind Eric Tomlinson, but man, I don't know why we got to keep seeing him getting targets in this offense. There's no need for that.
If we're dialing up like a crosser or an over route or something like that to a tight end, because could it please be to Stone Smart? Please, at least he's athletic and has hands. Tomlinson is useless. He's not good as a blocker, and he can't catch.
Yeah,
and when he does catch it, he fumbles it. So what are we doing?
Almost had a pick that would have, I mean, maybe not flipped the game, but would have made it a lot different if he would have.
At least more interesting.
Yeah,
right?
with that. Yeah, and the false starts, as the chat mentioned, that too. Add that to the list of things. And man, Will Dissly getting, I think, tied for the most targets on the team today again. But man, a terrible drop on third down where they had a big chunk play dialed up. It hit him in the hands. Probably caught it in stride. We're talking, 30, 40-yard gain, if not like to the house at that point. That some bad drops from some tight ends today. Yeah.
I mean, they have issues on the offensive line. They have issues at tight end. They got to figure something out. I mean, they won.
Yes,
they won. They won by more than 2 scores, which is a very difficult thing to do in the NFL.
Yes.
They stepped on their throats when they had them down, and they stuck a fork in them when they had a chance to, which are things this Charger team has not historically done. So you can't, you have to walk away happy, right? With a multi-score win in the NFL, with so many things going wrong on the offensive side of the ball, they still find a way to put up 26 points. Yep. So all those things are really good. And
the Saints were gifted 2 points to start the game.
Yep, the Saints are, I mean, that should have been a 26-3 game. Really. So lots of things to build on, but also, plenty of things to correct.
For sure. And by the way, if we're bitching, since we're kind of in the middle of it, I know we're going to get kind of like a compliment sandwich, good stuff, bad stuff, good stuff. What about Bud Dupree, man? I mean, it seems like every week he's making some kind of terrible play. We saw him today try to go for the ball on Kamara when he's got him wrapped up in the backfield, rather than bringing him down for an easy loss behind the line of scrimmage. Tries to go for the ball with one hand, and Kamara just breaks free, and then it's a huge gainer. And then at the very end, it was almost scripted. Elijah Molden finally gets redemption. He gets robbed of an interception earlier in the game, then gets the ball thrown right to him to end the game and get the interception. And Dupree commits a boneheaded penalty that wipes out the interception, puts his helmet in Hayner's chest for no reason, way after the throw, wipes the interception off the board, a turnover that Molden deserved. He doesn't get it. They don't end up scoring, but they get another play which they could have scored and made the game at least closer in the scorebook. But man, I mean, Dupree, it feels like every game now had a safety that he couldn't wrap up the other day, a sack he couldn't come down with. He rolled over the back of, was it Murray at that point? Was it that?
I think so.
Game?
Yeah.
It's crazy.
Yeah. I mean, he did have a sack today, so that's a positive.
Yes, he did.
He finally finished a sack. He got home and finished
at the end of the game. That was
but I mean, that things happen with tackling. You want to see him wrap up and finish. He had him for a tackle for loss and he let him break the tackle. Yeah, that's frustrating, but shit happens. But the penalty at the end of the game is just dumb. Like you just can't have that. Like there's no excuse for that. You know what you're doing. The game is over. Don't take a stupid penalty. Don't give them an extra play. Finish the game with a turnover. You know, it's just a whole different feel. You know, they score a touchdown there. It doesn't change the game, but you leave that game feeling a whole lot different than you do at 26-5, 8.
It was
right?
8. Yeah.
26-8.
Mm-hmm.
It's just a different feeling if you give up 6 there. So don't put your helmet down. Don't hit the guy late. You're 2 or 3 steps away. He got the ball out, pull up. The game's over. You got the pick. There's no reason to do that. It's just dumb. Just dumb. Careless.
Yeah. Very, very. We haven't really talked about the defense. I mean, we just started with Dupree, but another nice job by the defense. Didn't give up a touchdown. Again, they were, special teams gave up 2 points to start the game. Only had 2 field goals, one of which they were kind of playing soft at the end of a half. But some nice plays from the rookies again today. Cam Hart made such a nice hit on Chris Olave. Nice clean hit, by the way. One of which, other players might just pull up because of the penalty last week that kind of cost them the game, which nobody really feels was really a penalty. But that's in the past now. But clean hit almost caused a fumble on that. Olave had to go out of the game, but it was a nice clean hit. And then we saw Tarheeb Still make a real sticky tackle on a 3rd down on Tipton, I believe, at that point. Forced a punt when Saints were driving. So nice job from them because Fulton had to go out of the game again today. But across the board, it felt like the DBs did a pretty nice job. Olave, I think, got over 100 yards, but that was kind of all of it came in garbage time when they were just kind of relenting yards. And he had like 14 or 15 targets today. So they were trying to get it to him as much as possible. But it felt like for most of the game, a real nice job from the DBs, giving up a couple, completions in front of them, but nothing over the top, and pretty good tackling today too.
Yeah, overall the tackling was pretty good. There were a couple of missteps. We talked about Dupree. There were a couple of other issues. That first run, the way the Saints started with that long run with Kamara on the first quarter on their first possession, I was like, oh my God, the run defense is gone. There's no gap integrity, no tackling. He rips off a long run, and it's like, oh shit, here we go again. But they figured it out. They cleaned it up.
Yep.
They maintained their gap integrity. They swarmed the ball. They got guys on the ground. There were 1 or 2 other plays. One got called back for a penalty. I mean, there was one play where I think the Saints ran like a toss out to the right. 3 defenders came flying up to the ball and had him dead to rights, but they were all bunched up too far outside, and he cut it back inside for a big gain, and it got called back for a penalty.
Yeah.
But overall, I thought the linebackers played better this week. It seemed like they got more out of the interior of the defensive line this week than they did last week. Just tougher and more physical, and played with more desire this week, I thought, than last week.
Yeah, Kamara broke off that 24-yarder to begin the game, finished the game with 67. So really, after that, for the most part, locked him up in the run game, because I was also concerned because that was not a good start offensively or defensively for both of them, or on special teams for that matters. It didn't start off good at all. But the chat just mentioned it, and it was from James Heritage, but I was just going to talk about that deflection from Tier Tart on a crosser that looked like it had a big gainer written all over it. I mean, Derwin was trailing by what felt like almost 3 yards. I mean, if he caught that, he was taken off, and it was going to be a pretty big gain. We also saw a really nice pass deflection from Thule on a 3rd down in the 3rd quarter when he kind of dropped back. He kind of showed a little blitz, dropped back in coverage, got a nice little tip. So we got some hands up. And interior defensive line playing pretty good as well. Matlock got a sack, which was all helped out by a blitz off the edge from Derwin, who forced, I think it was Rattler at the time, to step up. And then Matlock was able to kind of collect the sack. Rattler like jumped right into him, but Matlock brought him down. It was a nice little play by Matlock there too.
And then you get that inside spin move by Ford for the sack in the fourth quarter.
Mm-hmm.
Starting to see the pass rush step up and make more plays. It was good. It's good. It's good to see them pressure the quarterback, affect the quarterback, and get home when they have a chance to, because they haven't done a lot of that this year.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. Yeah. Thule had a pretty nice game today too, just like in general, outside of that pass deflection. Had a sack where they tried to Rattler. They kind of, it opened up and Thule was able to bring him down behind the line of scrimmage. He had a nice game today. I think Mac had a sack as well, if I'm not mistaken. I think they had 4 on the day. But a nice job from the defense. I mean, this offense, they've got, I think Rattler, it just felt like they were playing really conservative, and the Chargers didn't bend at all with that. And once Haener came in, they kind of let him free a little bit more, and they did a nice job. Not because normally when you get that quarterback change, sometimes it just sparks an offense, and you see them run away with that backup. But today it just felt like they were able to keep both of them in check for the most part. And again, they got yardage in garbage time, but the defense did a really nice job today. Only giving up 8 points outside of that safety.
They did a good job bouncing back after kind of a rough, undisciplined game on Monday to come back and make some of the plays they made and just hold down an NFL offense and keep them out of the end zone is pretty impressive.
Yeah. Yeah. So I guess we should get to special teams at some point here, Jamie. We saw a pretty bad snap from Josh Harris, which I guess was a miscommunication. He thought, Scott would be rolling that way, but he wasn't. So they get a safety. Luckily, they were able to kind of knock it out of the end zone. Dicker misses an extra point today, which is rare. He's done it this season, but to see Dicker miss anything is rare. And then we saw they gave up a pretty big opening kickoff. I think they got up to the 40 to open the third quarter, but Saints couldn't get anything going, so it didn't hurt them. But a shaky special teams unit that's just been clean all year. I will say J.K. Scott was kicking the shit out of the ball today.
He was hang time and distance. Today. Yeah, he was booming the ball.
Yeah,
that was the one thing that really went extremely well on special teams was J.K. kicking the shit out of the ball. Yeah, but it seems like the protection now all of a sudden is leaky on special teams, particularly on the punt team. They're not really getting anything in terms of return yardage out of anybody. And by the way, can we please not have Ladd return punts? Like, I know he's shifty and he's quick and you're trying to make something happen, but I'm perfectly okay. Oh, looks like we lost Garrett. I'm sure he'll be back in a minute. I personally am perfectly okay with fair catching everything with Reagor. I do not need to see Ladd returning punts because of the risk it takes for injury. Just don't need to get him dinged up. Let's keep him fresh and get everything we can out of him on offense and not risk any big hits on special teams. Too much dancing, too much indecision for Ladd on punt returns. I just want to see just fair catch it with somebody else and just use Ladd as a wide receiver.
Yeah, I'm surprised they didn't have Reagor out there doing that more because I felt like that's why they had him. Darius Davis should be back soon. They're hoping. But yeah, and it was funny. I tweeted out, it just feels like also if he's back there, get him more north and south. He can't, he's dancing too much. He's losing yardage. They're gaining on him pretty quickly. So if he's, being shifty, which is great as a wide receiver when he gets the ball, but as a punt returner, it's just not working out. And then as soon as I tweet that out, that it's the bomb to Ladd where he is getting north and south, and he scores a touchdown. But if Ladd is out there, he's losing yards when he's doing all that dancing business. Fair catching is fine. To me, I'd like to see Reagor back there. Darius Davis, hopefully, more than him. But regardless, yeah, I don't like Ladd as a returner, and I hate him just kind of trying to be too shifty and kind of moving his feet too much as a returner.
Yeah, I'm sure it's got something to do with trusting his hands over the other options they have. But man, just fair catch the ball and move on. Like, we just do not need Ladd out there returning punts. It's just not worth the risk, in my opinion.
Yeah. All right, guys. If you guys got questions, go ahead and send them in. It's probably about that time. Let's start with Billy here. Asante Samuel Jr. Question mark. No contract. So obviously referring to a nice, pleasant surprise from the rookies where you felt like, they might be thrown in and we might see them in, spot duty this year, but having to go full on starting spot duty now where they're having to play with Fulton out and ASJ out, who's going to be out for a while now. We kind of have alluded to this. It felt like this was kind of a transition year for this cornerback group, and we felt like, Asante Samuel Jr. was not going to come back next year. You still there?
Yeah, I'm still here.
Okay.
Yeah,
I meant, are you still there? You still believe?
Yeah. No, I think he's probably gone. He's banged up. He really hasn't been. I mean, he's had moments, but he hasn't been super consistent. I think he's a good option for hopefully a comp pick. I think this cornerback room is going to look very, very different. I think they're going to lean towards bigger, more physical guys. And I'm not sure that Asante fits that mold, particularly in terms of his tackling on a consistent basis. I don't think he fits what they want outside in terms of run defense and tackling.
Yeah. I do not think they bring him back. I don't feel like he's the best fit. Again, this is a guy that was from the former regime. It's not built in this new regime's image. And Jamie nailed it. It's the tackling. The tackling just feels like they cannot have a guy as small as he is and not as physical as he is on the outside. I just don't think they trust a guy like that. And that's why they drafted guys while in size, maybe not, as big and physical as they want, but they are tacklers. They are big hitters. They are guys they're going to trust on an island to make those tackles. And it just feels like, they're going more towards that than they are bringing back ASJ, excuse me. And it feels like, we're just going to see comp picks rolling in when guys like these are not there. Do you see, from Blazing Bolts, more read option?
I mean, this is something I've been saying for over a year, right?
So?
I think it's something that needs to happen. It just makes them a little bit less predictable. I think particularly on short yardage downs, third down and short, red zone, he doesn't have to run the ball 15 times, Herbert, but if you can have him run the ball 5, 6, 7, 8 times a game in the right situations and catch the defense napping, he can help flip a game, help flip field position. I promise I can talk. And maybe get you a couple touchdowns that you wouldn't have otherwise had. So yeah, I think it's something that needs to happen now that he's fully healthy. It's just an element of their game that they need to add. There's no reason not to have him run the ball when he's so effective at it.
Yeah. Yeah. It feels, we're not talking, he's got to be rolling out like Lamar Jackson or Kyler or even like Jaden Daniels, but at least adding a couple more, adding a new wrinkle to the offense. And by doing that, you're keeping the defense honest. You saw when Herbert had that big run, they were kind of backing up and kind of, having to kind of worry about that more as the game went on because he was able to use his legs when he was flushed out of the pocket. So it helped open up the offense late in that game. And it just feels like the more you do that, the more you keep the defense honest and the more you can then start to take more shots down the field, open up your pass game, even open up the running game because they don't know, whether it's going to be a keeper or not. So I'm always more for more read option with Herbert, which is something we never said when Rivers was here because that was never an option.
Yep.
Squeezy, feel like you're new. What's up, Squeezy? Thanks for joining us. Bosa retires after the season. A hot or a cold take?
I mean, this is something I was saying last year that I thought might happen. He just hasn't been able to stay on the field. It seems like the injuries and the lack of availability are starting to catch up with him mentally, just by some of the things he said during his press conference earlier in the week. It just sounds like he's really tired of not being able to be on the field and be out there for his teammates. So, yeah, I mean, I could see it. I don't think he's a guy who needs to have football to, define who he is. He's got all the money in the world. He doesn't need to play. And he strikes me as a guy who, for him, his mental and physical well-being is more important than putting his body on the line. So not that I know him personally, it's just some things that I've, seen and read and things like that. He just seems like he's a little bit, I don't know, a little bit deeper thinker in that regard in some ways. So yeah, I don't think it's a hot take I don't think it's a hot take at all. I think it's a totally reasonable take and, could be pretty likely.
Yeah, it's more lukewarm because it does feel like it's kind of headed that way. And when you listen to him talk about how he's tired of letting his teammates down, it just feels like he's starting to come to the realization, and I'm obviously reading into the situation, that his body just can't keep up with the sport anymore, and he's obviously letting the guys around him down, and everybody depends on him. And when he can't be out there, he's letting himself down. It just feels like it's a culmination of everything, letting his teammates down, himself down, his coach down, his family down, everybody down, because he just can't be on the field. And when your body can't keep up, which it feels like he might be getting to that type of time now, it just feels like that's when it's time players start to hanging up. And he's not like, it feels like he's not the type of guy that's like, football is his everything. He's done enough. He's earned multiple contracts. He's had a phenomenal career as an edge rusher, and at some point you just have to let it go. And it feels like it could be rounding the corner here for sure.
Yeah, I agree. Why continue to put your body and your mind through all this stuff if you don't need to? It just seems like it's really weighing on him. So I could see it.
Yeah. All right. From Richie Farley, early preview thoughts for next week's game against the Browns. Did you see the game today? They beat.
I just saw the highlight of the end of the game. I didn't see the whole game.
Deshaun Watson looking, or not Deshaun Watson. He's looking like he's not there. Jameis Winston looking pretty good, and David Njoku feeling like he's breathing a little bit more life. Hate that they're winning now. Hate that they might feel like they think they can kind of move forward with what they have. Because I was hoping to maybe take away some of those players at the trade deadline, maybe pick some of those off. But it's they just beat the Ravens, who are a very good football team. How are you feeling now? I'm definitely less confident than I was when Deshaun was in there.
I mean, they're 2-6. Like they're not going to make the playoffs.
No.
So what are you hanging on to at this point? You're hanging on to key pieces of a 2-6 football team. Okay. I mean, I guess it's the Browns. They're not very well managed. I guess I could see them getting delusional and hanging on to guys. But if they're being pragmatic and they're being honest with themselves, they're looking to sell pieces off. And if I'm the Chargers, I probably call them and I ask them, I start talking about a package deal for Njoku and either Elijah Moore or Cedric Tillman.
You're taking multiple. You want more? Oh, okay.
Maybe try to solve both problems in one shot. I feel like Moore gives them a little bit of explosiveness, a little bit of shiftiness. You get some playmaking in the middle of the field with Njoku, a big target. I want everything. I want all of it.
Give him all.
Give me all of it.
I want it too. I want it all too. Yeah, you think that they wouldn't hold on to, but when have the Browns ever been a nicely run organization? Like never. Never.
Yep.
But Winston throwing 300 plus yards, 3 touchdowns, Tillman getting over 100. I think maybe it was 99, around 100 yards. It'll be interesting. They don't have the receiving core that they once did with Amari Cooper. Njoku's going to be a problem. Winston's going to want to run, and he's going to want to sling it. And he didn't make any mistakes today, no interceptions, but normally when that happens, he does make a lot of mistakes. So still a team that they should beat pretty handily, but feels like, with Winston, they have some kind of momentum and maybe some more confidence heading into this coming week.
Could be. They shouldn't, but it could be. Somebody else, and we've talked about this, somebody else that makes a lot of sense is Evan Ingram. I think he changes a lot for the Chargers in the middle of the field with the ball in his hand. So I'd be good with either Njoku or Ingram.
Okay. Yeah. Let's see. Does the passing game from Knox, does the passing game take a big step up when QJ and Chark are back?
I mean, I felt like it took a pretty big step up today in the
Mhm.
second half of the game. Now, the Saints aren't a great football team, but I think what was really missing the first several weeks of the season was just continuity. Guys are in and out in the wide receiver group. There's no real like connection or timing or rhythm in the offense, and it just seemed like they started to find a rhythm. They started to feel each other out. Herbert's getting comfortable making throws that he maybe wasn't comfortable making a few weeks ago, to throw guys open, to anticipate guys. So do QJ and Chark make a huge difference? The way they were using QJ, he probably makes a decent difference. I don't know how big of a difference Chark makes until I see him on the field.
Yeah.
That's tough to say, but he is a deep threat, and he is a guy who I think you can at least use to threaten to stretch the field. Even if he's not making plays, you can throw it deep to him to loosen things up for the running game and for some of the things you want to do underneath in the passing game.
Yeah, it feels like, I mean, a jump up from today. I don't know. Today felt pretty explosive.
Today was pretty good.
Yeah. Yeah. I don't know. I mean, it feels like it could get better. Obviously, you want the passing game better, and it should get better with QJ and Chark, but I don't know it's as big of a step as we all would hope it would be, because they weren't very good when QJ was in there. Passing game wasn't. So adding Chark helps a little bit, but I don't think enough. What do you think about the Chargers missing Gus in pass protection and lead blocking? I mean, J.K. Dobbins has done pretty good in pass pro, to be honest with you. And lead blocking, I mean, we don't see him that much, but do you think they're missing Gus?
I
don't think so, but
I don't feel like he was doing all that much when he was in there.
Yeah.
No, I don't think that's what they're missing.
Do you? Oh, go ahead. You got.
I was just gonna say, not necessarily on Gus, but just talking about the last question, the passing game. Herbert today was 20 of 32 for 279 and 2 scores. And there was a big drop by Disley on a play that should have been like a 30 or 40 yard gain. So, he could have easily been well over 300 yards today. They had a bunch of explosives. I think 5 or 6, maybe 7 explosive plays that changed the outcome of that game. So I think the plays are there. They just, Herbert needs to let it rip, and they need to take some of those chances down the field that they've maybe been a little bit more hesitant to take early in the season while they've been building that rapport.
Yeah. Who gets the game ball today? Ladd? I think so.
I think Ladd and Herbert are both good options. Since he had 2 taken away from him, maybe Molden.
To finally give him the ball that he deserved. Yeah.
I'm good with Ladd getting it.
Yeah, for sure. Ladd, definitely. Tracy Keenan, can we talk about how Herbert doesn't turn the ball over? Yeah, he's only got 1 turnover for the year. There's been some luck involved in that, it feels like.
There has. He had a couple plays today that could have very easily been turnovers. A couple of kind of questionable decisions with the pass rush bearing down on him. But overall, he's been, I think, pretty good about protecting the ball.
And there's been a couple plays this season where it's almost fumbles, where his hand's coming forward and he gets hit and the ball gets into the ground, and luckily it's going his way. But it feels like one of those is coming around the bend, because he's getting hit when he's throwing, and it just feels like one of those isn't going to be that forward motion.
There was one of those today where I thought it was the contact that made his arm go forward. They called it an incomplete pass, but I didn't think his arm was moving forward until he got hit. But he got away with it.
Okay. John Taylor, realistic trade deadline options. David Njoku, Evan Ingram for sure. Jamie mentioned. Deontay Johnson is probably one that could be realistic.
I mean, we've talked about that.
Cooper Kupp could be realistic.
I think they hang on to him. I think the win on Thursday night convinces them that they're still in the NFC West, and I think they hang on to him. I don't think they trade him.
Could be a guy they called about though. So if you think of it that way, it might be realistic.
Yep. Could be.
Could be. Who else? Yeah.
Who else have we talked about? We've named.
Yeah,
I
we
feel like
put
we've
it.
had this same discussion every three
Yeah.
times a week for the last 3 weeks. So,
Yeah.
I don't think. I think it's going to be harder to find an offensive lineman at the trade deadline. You just don't seem to see offensive linemen get traded that often. Once you have a good one, you want to hang on to them. So they're less disposable than some of these skill position players are.
One name, and we were going to do a podcast on this, or at least I was for the Discord. But one name of a guy that they've called on, and it was a no as of 2 weeks ago, was Chigakonkwo, the Titans tight end, which I love that idea. Titans are really, really bad, and to get something for him, he looks like he could be a lot of fun to the offense.
I mean, any tight end who can catch and run
would be exciting.
Faster than a statue would be really fun.
Okay. I think we're pretty much done. Blazing bolts here. Do we wake up to a trade tomorrow morning?
When's the deadline? Tuesday?
I want to say yes.
Let's see. I don't know that it happens tomorrow. I think it probably happens right before the deadline if it happens.
Yeah, November 5th. Oh, November 5th, they said.
That's
right. That's right. It's the 5th.
Oh, it's November 5th? Okay.
Yeah.
Another option could be Christian Kirk from the Jaguars.
With
could them be. quickly descending into the tank.
Yes. How credible is the DK Metcalf rumor? I haven't heard anything about that. Any way to fix Zion? Do you see any way they
At this point I would say no.
Yeah.
I was really hoping that having real coaches in the building would help him. But he just at this point, unfortunately, he seems unsalvageable. He just doesn't seem like he's very aware of what's going on around him.
And I just read today that the Texans are having the same issue with the guy they drafted before Zion, Kenyon Green. Yeah,
Kenyon Green.
Same type of issue. Like he's a cut candidate at this point. But
it's a bummer, man.
I know. I know. Hoping Zion could be fixed, but it doesn't look like it. Okay. All right. Well, we're about an hour in. Thank you, everybody, for joining us. Sorry I had to jump off a couple times. I appreciate you guys being flexible. And Jamie, thank you for taking over.
Of course.
We appreciate you guys, and we will see you next time.
Thanks, everybody.
See ya.